In this video tutorial, we're going to take a look at how to make a flickering light via an actor blueprint. So if I hit play, you can see what we get. So this is a randomized flicker that happens in between 1 and 2 seconds. And this is quite nice because I am able to select the light and I can adjust my flicker time, my intensity multiplier, my initial intensity, and my flicker speeds at randomized levels and also the light color. So this is nice because I can drop multiple lights in here make quick adjustments. And it helps me to work pretty quickly when I'm building out levels. So obviously a huge fan of actor blueprints and what they can do in terms of speeding up, creating dynamic elements for your level. So let's take a second and build one of these out. So I'm just going to right click. I created a folder and called it Actor Blueprints. I'm going to right click, go to my new blueprint class here, and we're going to select Actor. And I'll call this Light Flicker Demo. We'll go ahead and open the actor blueprint up. And we need to add a component here, so I'm going to choose Spotlight. And we can go ahead and compile that. I'm just going to flip back over to my level for a second because I do have some height fog in here that's set to volumetric just so you can see the light cone a little bit. And I have that set with a fog density of 0.8. Volumetric fog checked on. My scattering distribution is set to 0.7. That helps the fog follow the direction of the light a little better. And then everything else is pretty much set to default. I'm going to go ahead and just remove this one. I'll bring in my light flicker demo here. So right now it's just basically a spotlight. So what I want to do is go ahead and get this blueprint ready in terms of its light fog settings. So I'm just going to switch back to my blueprint. And under volumetric fog scattering intensity, I'm going to try that at something like 2 and see how that looks. I can see it, the effect is very subtle. I think I'm going to turn it up just for demonstration purposes. There we go. So that's not bad. Let's work with that. Now we're going to go ahead and build out our actual blueprint. I'm just going to get rid of the overlap event and the tick event because we won't need those. And I'm going to make some variables here. So I'm going to start with a new float. I'm going to call it init intensity for initial intensity. We'll set that to a float. So this is how I'm going to define the initial intensity. And I could, go down into the light component, right? If I wanted to, if I select this and under the components, here's my spotlight. So I could set the intensity here as well if I wanted to. This is for me just a way to kind of speed up setting the light and polishing the intensity and stuff like that. So it's a sort of a quality of life setup here. If I'm building on a level, I can do this quickly. So we'll also grab a reference to the spotlight itself, and we're going to do set intensity. And for the initial intensity, we're going to set that to something like 6500. And you can mess with these values. I'm choosing these based on what's going to give me a visible result. So from here, I'm going to drag off of the spotlight node again, and I'm going to create a couple of reroutes. I'm going to choose set light color. And under new light color, I could just straight change it in here, but I wanted to be able to make this a public variable. So I'm going to drag off of light color and promote that to a variable. And I'll just name this light color. Go ahead and compile that. And I'm going to set the default. I'll go ahead and select the node, and I can change the light color here. I'm just going to make it kind of an orange color for now. Let's go ahead and hit compile again. The next thing we want to do is basically initialize this. I could set something up in tick, and that would be, I think, a little easier, but it's not performance friendly. So we're going to use a performance friendly approach here. So I'm going to create a couple new variables. I'm going to say flicker time min, make that a float, and flicker time max. From here, we're going to drag off and select a set timer by function name. And under the function name, I'm going to type flicker. I'm going to set the time to 0.1. Now we can go ahead and create the event that's going to fire at begin play. So I'm going to create a custom event. I'm going to call it flicker. And we'll get another reference to our spotlight. I'm going to drag off of here and choose set intensity. And I'm going to use the initial intensity for that. That way, while we're, multiplying light values and things, the intensity doesn't get too far out of control. I'm going to drag off this spotlight reference and choose get intensity. So that will be the actual intensity of the light. And now we need to make a couple new variables. I'm going to call this one intensity, if I can spell, intensity mult min. So that'll be the minimum multiplier. Intensity mult max for the max multiplier. Just drag these in here. Now I'm going to pull off of the multiplier minimum and choose random float and range. And I'm going to multiply the intensity. So do a float times float. And I need to set these values, so I'm going to go ahead and compile. So I'm going to start with a minimum intensity multiplier of 2500, and we'll do a max of 5,000. These are pretty extreme values, but this way, you'll be able to easily see the changes. So from here, we're going to get that intensity that we had set. We're going to do an FInterpTo. So our intensity is going to be our current value, and then we're going to interpolate it by multiplying the intensity by a random value between the min and max. And that will be our target. For delta time, we're going to do get world delta seconds. And for our interp speed, we're going to need a couple more variables. These will also be floats. Flicker min speed, and then flicker max speed. And again, we'll do a get random. I think I just need random float and range. And this will be our interp speed. So to start, we'll set these values to 1 and 2. And from here, I'm going to get a reference to my spotlight again. We can do set intensity, and this will be our new intensity. And then we'll do a set timer by function name again. Call this flicker. So at the end of the event, it's going to get called again. And this is where our flicker time minimum and flicker time maximum come into play. And we'll do another random float. And then we'll set these also to 1 and 2 seconds. clean this up a little bit. Okay, so the way this is going to work is when the game starts, we're going to set the initial intensity of the light. Right now we're setting it to 6500, and we're going to set the color, which is orange. And then we're going to call this custom event. So I know it says set timer by function, but it works for custom events also. And then it's going to call flicker. So we'll reset the intensity. We'll get the intensity, and we're going to multiply that by the value that's derived from this random float. And then we're going to interpolate the value from its current intensity to the multiplied value over in between a speed of 1 and 2. And then what's going to happen is after that new intensity is set, in between 1 and 2, I believe that's seconds. I feel like it's seconds. It's going to call the function again. So let's see if we can get this to go. So I'll go ahead and hit play. And you can see our light intensity changing. And then this is something that, instead of it just being kind of a one-off blueprint, this is a blueprint that you can do different things with, right? So if I wanted to bring another in here, and I think I need to make my variables public. So since the eye is closed here, as soon as we open up these eyes, these will become public variables, and we'll be able to view them in the details panel. So if I scroll up now, you can see I have all my variables. You know, right now we're starting with an initial intensity of 6500. Let's say we go to 10,000, right? And then if I hit play, we take a look, you can see this, the light that I just dropped in here is much brighter. So this is a nice way to kind of get some diversity going and some different nuance going by working with these public variables. Let's say I want to make the flicker time be something like 0.1, 0.3. I'll leave the multipliers the same. I'll change the color to green. And we'll change this to 0.5 and 0.1. So now you can see it's flickering faster. And since it's interpolating, right, you're getting kind of a smoother flicker than you would just by multiplying two values together. Something else that might be kind of cool to do with this is if I select this, hold Alt, click and drag, I can just straight duplicate it. And then we'll do another one. So under the intensity multiplier, I could set it to the minimum to 0. So there is an outside chance here that it could get turned off. So I guess if I set the max to 1, that would increase the chance of it hitting 0. Let's maybe make it like 0.5. Doesn't really seem like that wants to go. We could have it go super high, but we could have it do it over somewhere in between 4 seconds and 5 seconds. And I'll set this one to 2 and 3. Now let's see what we get. It's very bright. So obviously it's not flickering as much as the green one, but we are getting some change there. It's just more subtle and slow, but the intensity is much higher. So just an idea, pretty quickly I've got 4 different light setups going here in a very short period of time. So we're really kind of cool working with actor blueprints and figuring out different ways that you can kind of get the most out of each blueprint you're putting together, and how you can add in little extra features through public variables to add diversity and polish to your actors. So that wraps up this video tutorial. Thanks everybody for watching.